We have huge breaking news from the Montreal Canadiens organization. They've fired head coach Claude Julien and assistant Kirk Muller. We'll discuss the situation and who's taking over coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now we have some pretty huge news here in the NHL. The Montreal Canadiens have parted ways with head coach Claude Julien and assistant coach Kirk Muller. Of course, we saw another unfortunate loss for the Habs last night in overtime in a shootout against the Ottawa Senators. Of course, after getting off to a hot start, the Habs have been a little bit cold as of late. The last 7 or 8 games have not gone overly well. The pressure was starting to mount to get things turned around, and it seems as though a change was in the air. Many people were talking on social media that perhaps it was time for a coaching change. The Montreal Canadiens and Marc Bergevin certainly had high expectations this year. I said myself before, I firmly believe that if they had to make the playoffs and continue to build on last year's performance in the bubble, or there would be some significant changes either at the coaching position, or I think to a degree even Marc Bergevin might be feeling the pressure a little bit. But many people felt, myself included, that a lot of the moves he made in the offseason made this team a lot stronger and deeper team, and was not surprised by the early success in the 2021 NHL season here. But of course, as of late, things have not gone overly well. Special teams have been a mess. Carey Price has been inconsistent. For example, in last night's game, he made some incredible saves, but you could probably argue that at least 2, maybe 3 of the goals that he let in were soft goals, and certainly not something that he can be having take place. I mean, it's just as simple as that. I mean, many people feel that Carey Price is probably the most inconsistent superstar, I guess you could say, around the league. Many people still say he's the best goalie in the NHL, but yet he's been very inconsistent and has let in a lot of goals that just can't happen. And obviously Jake Allen, I think this year, it's fair to say, has been the better goalie and more consistent goaltender so far. Now, of course, replacing Claude Julien is assistant coach, now head coach, Dominique Ducharme. I mean, many felt, I did as well, that Ducharme was kind of a head coach in waiting. Not surprising to see them turn to him for the next opportunity here. They also have Joel Bouchard down in Laval, who I thought was a potential contender as well. They had a lot of guys that they were kind of grooming to be future head coaches, so they had a lot of potential guys there at their disposal. I know earlier today on social media, I was talking with some other hockey fans about the fact that I didn't really think we'd see any coaches be fired this year, and not until later or at the end of the season or into the off season. But if it did, I said it would have to be an internal candidate taking over, given all the rules around, with COVID and isolation and all that kind of stuff. So Ducharme is actually, he has a good reputation of being a great coach. I mean, he was brought into Montreal due to the fact he earned an opportunity to get an NHL shot. He was brought in due to familiarity with Jonathan Drouin to help make him a better player. I mean, Ducharme coached in the QMJHL for 10 years, 7 years as a head coach, many of which with the Halifax Mooseheads having a lot of success. Obviously, Jonathan Drouin was a part of that. He also coached with Drummondville before making the jump. He also had opportunity to coach Team Canada at World Juniors and did well. So replacing Kirk Muller as an assistant coach with the Habs will be former NHL player and assistant coach in Laval, Alex Burrows. So of course Burrows will make the jump here to the NHL. Certainly somebody who's earned the respect so far during his fairly brief coaching career, but certainly someone with a ton of experience that they're hoping can make a difference as well and can help get this team back on track. But I know listening to TSN Radio as the news was breaking, I was listening to TSN 1200 in Ottawa. They were scheduled to have Tony Marinaro from the Montreal radio on, and they were going to talk about the disallowed goal and the controversy from last night. And before they could even get to that, there was the breaking news on this. So that dominated the segment. And he himself said that he felt that the players were kind of at a point where they wanted some change, that the top offensive players were getting frustrated with how Claude Julien continuously rolled 4 lines, didn't seem to matter too much on who was playing well, not playing well. The offensive guys they thought should have gotten more ice time, and that obviously some changes needed to be taking place that way. Obviously special teams were not good. The power play has been really bad lately, which is ultimately the reason why they moved on from Kirk Muller as well, because he was responsible for the power play there. So certainly, this is a big deal. They've been with the organization for a long time, But like I said, pressure's mounting. It's a tough market. When things don't go well, somebody's got to pay the price. And they're stuck with some veteran guys here for a long time. Like, they're not really going to be able to trade Carey Price or Shea Weber. Not that they're necessarily the only issues here. I mean, Weber had a good game last night, scored a couple goals, but fair to say that, you know, you can see the decline in his skating and just the overall movement, like how he gets around the ice and stuff. Like, there's certainly a step down. And Carey Price, like I said, has been inconsistent this year. I really like Carey Price. He's had a great career, solid goaltender. You know, certainly known to be one of the best in his position in the world at any given time in the last decade or more. But like, he's been very inconsistent, and for the amount of money he makes, he absolutely has to be better. It's no different than you hear Leaf fans in Toronto complaining that John Tavares isn't doing enough based on that $11 million he's getting paid. Well, the same goes for Carey Price. He needs to shut the door and be at the top of his game with Vezina-like, you know, stats in order to really justify that kind of contract. But it hasn't been there. But I do like a lot of the other moves that Bergevin made in the offseason. I think this team still has a lot of potential. Toffoli's played really well. Anderson's played really well. Suzuki's continued to elevate his game and get going here. Drouin, for the most part, I know he had a bit of a slowdown, but I thought he's been good with Anderson and Suzuki. We'll see how Ducharme decides to make some changes here, if he'll, you know, make any adjustments to the lines or ice time or anything. But if you look at the ice time in the last little while, like, I understand some of the offensive guys might want to play more, but really the ice time is, you know, not terrible for the most offensive players. It's not like he's, you know, not playing them enough, but maybe they want more of a system like we see with like Toronto and Edmonton, where they're like absolute top guys like Matthews, Marner, Draisaitl, McDavid play, you know, well over 20 minutes a night, and you see like the fourth line and to a degree the third line, you know, having their minutes scaled back even more. But I mean, Claude Julien certainly kind of had a system in Boston for a long time that was successful, but kind of failed to adapt and make changes. Same thing, I think, kind of happened here in Montreal. You know, overall, he's had a pretty decent coaching career, but a situation where he needed to be able to make some changes and adapt with kind of the way the league is going, and it just kind of failed to do so. So we'll see. Let me know your thoughts on Dominique Ducharme as the next head coach of the Montreal Canadiens. Did Marc Bergevin and the Habs make the right move here by moving on from Julien? Is Ducharme the right guy? Do you see him having long-term success? And do you see this team getting things turned around? We've seen many times where an NHL team has made a coaching change, especially when there's enough time left in the season to get things on track, that could still have a solid rest of the regular season and potentially do some damage in the playoffs. Like, it's not all is not lost here because of the last week to 10 days when things have not gone very well. They could still get going here. So let me know what you think, if this is going to do the trick here and what will happen next in Montreal. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.